This is my $100 gaming PC, and honestly, it's awesome, except for one tiny problems. It's turned all my favorite new AAA games into what I like to call a PowerPoint simulator. So, that got me thinking, what if we just add a little more bucket? Could we actually play modern games at decent performance? Well, let's find out. I decided to throw in an extra $50, bringing the total to $150, and trust me, that small upgrade took us from hot dog to hot damn. We are talking about running games like The Witcher 3 and Black Myth Wukong at 1080p, 60 fps. And to make it even more interesting, I grabbed a few extra parts to prove that just $150 you can build something way more comfortable than you expect. In my last video, one of you guys left a great comment saying I should try using a bigger PC case instead of those tiny SFF models so I could fit a larger GPU upgrade. And honestly, that's what an awesome suggestion. So if you're watching this, here's time. This time, I picked up a Devil's Throw 3888, a mini tower case that came out around 2020. It's compact, clean, and yeah, totally boring to look at. No RGB, no fancy gamer logos, just plain black office PC vibes. Which means most people wouldn't even consider it for gaming. But that's exactly why it's a goldmine, and where we come out on top. Because inside this thing, you already got the CPU, motherboards, RAM, storage, case, and power supply all ready to go. That makes it one of the cheapest and the smartest way to jump into PC gaming. And all you really need is compatible GPU and you are good to go. Alright, let's crack this thing open and see what kinds of treasure is hiding inside. Taking off the side panel, the first thing I spotted is a single RAM stick and a SATA hard drive. Pretty basic stuff. But let's pull up that stock cooler and see what CPU we're dealing with. And that it is, the Intel Core i3 10100. Here what we're working with, 4-core, 8 threads, a base clock of 2.6 GHz and the boost up to 4.3 GHz. It's got 6 MB of cache and a 65 watts TDP plus integrated UHD 630 graphics. Truth, we're absolutely not here to use that. So yeah, for what basically an office PC, this little chip actually has some solid gaming potentials once we drop a dedicated GPU in there. So inside, we got just a single 8GB stick of RAM, which honestly is pretty limiting these days. That's barely enough to keep Windows happy, let alone run games smoothly. There's also a 128GB SATA SSD. Luckily, this motherboard actually have a PCIe M.2 slot, so I'm throwing in an NVMe SSD instead. That should make a big difference in load time and overall system responsiveness. Perfect for testing game performance before we move on to the GPU upgrades. Jumping into our first game, CS2, I'm testing it on the lowest setting possible. The result? Pretty much what you expect. This game is way more demanding on the graphics side, and our little 4-core 8-thread CPU is really struggling to keep up. We're getting around 15 FPS, which basically turned the whole thing into a slideshow. At this point, let's be real, if you're planning to play CS2 like this, just forget about it. It's not happening until we throw in a proper GPU. Next up is Fortnite, running on low settings. We are only getting around 30 FPS. Not great. What's interesting is that even though the CPU power draw is pretty low, sitting at around 40 watts, the temperature still climb up to 7 degrees, and it definitely gets harder the longer you play. Alright, let's do a quick test with Minecraft, running it without shaders. We are getting around 20 to 30 FPS, which is barely playable but still manageable if you don't mind some stutter. But the moment I turn the shader on, oh man, it's completely tank. We're taking single digit FPS, like straight up slideshow levels. So yeah, unless you enjoy watching Minecraft in slow motions, I say keep the shader far away from this setup. Alright, I think it's time we move on to upgrade phase before this poor PC actually explode from running games like Minecraft. My budget for this is about $50, which give it a quite few GPU options to choose. But there are a couple of important things to keep in mind here. First, the stock power supply in Dell only delivers to 16 watts, and there's no extra power connector for the GPU. So, we got to be smart. That means picking a card with a low TDP so the power supply can handle it, and ideally something that doesn't require an internal power cable. If you don't have a SATA to 8-pin adapter, your best bet is to stick with the GPUs that run entirely off the PCIe slot. So, I grabbed this GTX 1050 Ti 4GB off Facebook Marketplace for just $40. And yeah, I already know what you're thinking. Why it's so cheap? Well, that's the reason. This card isn't exactly in perfect shape. It's been repaired, and both of its main output ports, HDMIs and display port, are completely dead. The only one still working is this old school DVI port. But honestly, it still performs surprisingly well for casual gaming and everyday use. Plus, the TDP is only 75 watts, which means it doesn't need any internal power connectors. It's run completely off the motherboard. So, it's actually a perfect match for our 216-watt stock power supply. Cheap, efficient, and just good enough to breathe a new life into this bucket build. I also decided to throw in 8GB stick of DDR3 RAMs. Nothing fancy, just something to help smoothing out. I actually grabbed this one used for about $10 from local seller, which is a pretty sweet deal. If you're buying new from places like Amazon or Newegg, you'd expect to pay closer to $20 for the same thing. Starting again with CS2, and wow, the difference is insane. FPS jumped from a painful 15 FPS all the way up to 120 after upgrades. That's a massive improvement. Overall, this PC is handling the game super well now, with frame rates mostly sitting in triple digits, makes everything feel buttery smooth. Fortnite is also a massive boost, jumping from around 30 FPS all the way up to 130 FPS. That's right here to show how much a difference a dedicated GPU makes when it comes to gaming performance, especially in fast-paced shooters. But what about something more creative like Minecraft? Well, with a shader, this setup absolutely fire. We are taking over 300 FPS, which means if you got a high refresh rate monitor, you can really take an advantage of it. Once I turned the shader on, the performance dropped by about 10x, landing around 30 FPS. Still, even when looking over a reflective surface like water, the frame rate still stable with no major drop, which is pretty impressive for a bucket build like this. Alright, let's see how this setup handles proper AAA titles. The Witcher 3. I ran it at low settings and 1080p resolutions, and surprisingly, the game managed to hover around 35 to 40 FPS. It's not buttery smooth, but honestly, for a bucket build like this, that's completely playable. And since The Witcher 3 isn't a competitive FPS, you can still enjoy the story, explore the world, and fight monsters without it feeling too slow. Not bad at all for $40 GPU upgrade. So, overall, for just a small bucket upgrade, this PC went from barely running games to delivering a generally smooth and enjoyable experience. The performance jumps after adding a proper GPU and extra RAM, and honestly night and day. It feels like a completely different machine. For a price, you really can't complain. If you enjoyed this build, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more bucket-friendly gaming content.